Yo, what's up guys? Welcome to an ER Q&A episode. By the way, today's episode is coming in partnership with Born to Do Business. So first of all, Born to Do Business is from Sierra Leone and it's run by Loviel. And it's just an environment where different entrepreneurs in Africa are able to connect and network, and also provides a lot of different advices for entrepreneurs. So definitely make sure to check out their Facebook. I'm gonna put their link somewhere around here. And these questions were directly from the WhatsApp group where I was able to kind of post one of my videos. And I was talking about how to be able to basically select partners when it comes to founding up your company. Now the first response that I got was actually a pretty good criticism on the video that I had made, and I loved it. So basically what the individual said, I'm trying to summarize it here, is measuring someone's value or the value an individual adds to your company is one of the most challenging things to do. That is very much indeed true. So what this individual decided to do, Mohammed by the way, he decided to basically bring up the topic of sometimes a person's value or individual is going to be maybe not monetary value, of course. And they're going to be able to add in maybe reputation value. And I want to talk about that for a few seconds here. Now, of course, in the last video that I made about equity split, I didn't really necessarily jump in about like, oh, an individual is bringing in monetary value. I did talk about the individual skill set combined into what you are building as a vision for your company. And when it comes to a person who's coming in just for their reputation's sake, you might not always have to make them a partner, a full-on partner for your company. Instead, you can be able to have them not having to get equity in your company, but they can be a partner as far as associated with the company. They can maybe be a reputation rep. Maybe they can be able to be an influencer for your company, like most different companies usually do nowadays. They hire Instagram influencers or Facebook influencers, YouTube influencers to basically advertise for their product. It's the same thing a lot of different companies have done for years. Now, sometimes it is good if a person's reputation is going to be able to carry on long term and you're going to be able to see they can be able to really take your company to the next level, then definitely should offer them equity options. And even when you offer them equity options, usually you want to do this. You want to offer them either cash or equity. If they choose equity, that means they believe in your company much bigger than the monetary value at that time. So that means they might end up even being a much greater partner for you guys to work with in the long term. So Mohammed here, I 100% agree with you, bro. This is a great point that you brought up here, that definitely you should not just think about monetary values for a person coming to your company. You should look at their reputation in the environment you are working in, all right? Now, the next part here came from Billy, and Billy basically decided, oh, sorry, that's... You know, it's a WhatsApp group, so different people are having different conversations. So here it is actually from Billy. So from your video above, if you are allocating profit after a year of operation, what then would you be operating on? Assuming the company booms in that very year and one of your partners wants to leave. So if the company booms in 1 year and the partner decides to leave, that's a good or bad thing, right? Personally, for me, it's a good thing if that individual decides like, hey, you know, I don't feel like I can be a good part of this company. I have a different vision and I don't want to disrupt what's going on here. It's a beautiful thing and I just want to leave the company peacefully. And or a person wants to leave the company forcefully by saying, I want to withdraw my profits right now, and especially when the company needs those profits to grow again in the next following year. So it can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing. Now, of course, let's talk about the rights the individual has. If they own 10% of the company and the company has X amount of equity that's up for grabs, they can be able to exit at the valuation of the company. But also the company can be able to decide the valuation of the company. So once again, this is kind of a complicated topic. Just because the company has $100,000 in the bank account and the person owns 10% of the company, they cannot just go in and say, I'm taking $10,000 and I'm leaving. That $100,000 might actually end up not being straight cash that's there, because the company might have operating expenses, might have employee expenses, which have to be paid off first before the actual value of that cash in the bank is going to be able to determine at the valuation of the company itself. So maybe the exit valuation for that individual will have to be discussed by the board, and then the board will have to vote on how much they can be able to exit out with. Now, this has happened a lot of different times in a lot of different companies. When huge companies that are public usually have a person exiting, the board members end up deciding how much of a valuation that person can exit out. Now, that's the valuation the person can exit out with. Now, of course, it depends on how you structure the company and the legality. I don't know if that's the word, but the legal foundation itself, how it was set up. And there's other different laws that have to go into it. And I'm not the best person to give you advice on that, but I'm going to tell you this. The person does have a right to 10% of their shares. If the company is valued at $1 million, they have the right for you to buy them out at $100,000, or what you end up voting on for them to buy them out. So yeah, so if a person wants to leave the company after a year, honestly, they have the right to leave. They own 10% of the company or 20% of the company, whatever how much they own, they have the right to leave. Now, of course, if the company doesn't have the money to produce at that valuation at that moment, you cannot let that person bleed out the company at that moment and basically destroy the company itself as they exit. Usually, you want to be able to negotiate something and be like, hey, you will be paid off your shares over an X time period, or maybe your shares will be converted into something else, and etc. on, okay? Now, there's another part here where you talk about if you're allocating profit after a year of operation, and then what would you be operating on? Let me try and just reread this so I can be able to understand what the question you're asking. So if you are to be allocating profit after a year of operation, what then would you be operating on? So what I'm trying to see here is maybe you're saying is if you decide to not take profit from the company, then what are you going to be operating on? So once again, when you talk about profit from a company, it's usually a term that doesn't necessarily mean profit, as another company would determine profit. So let's say, for example, a company can make $1 million this year in sales, right? But they end up making $0 in profits, right? That doesn't mean that they actually never made any kind of profit. It just basically means they end up breaking even or something like that. Or maybe they decide they're going to reinvest all the money back into the company. So they might have made some profits, but they decided to reinvest back in the company. So your question here is, what will you be operating on? Well, first of all, you have to calculate all your expenses, the raw expenses, from the net revenue, and then declare your net profit. Then you can be able to operate on those profits. But the profits themselves doesn't necessarily mean that's what you need to operate on. If you've already deducted the expenses out of the revenues, that means you've already deducted the operating cost. So what you're left over is the profits, and the profits themselves you can decide on what you want to do. Do you want to reinvest back in the company, or do you want to be able to take some cash out? Now, I personally recommend, if your company is early and it's young, you probably don't want to take a lot of money out of the company. You want to be able to reinvest back in and be able to grow it into a watermelon instead of trying to take money from a little tiny grape, right? So that's kind of my personal opinion. But then again, it depends on where you are in life. It depends on what you want to do with your company. So if you decide to take money on your company, it's your company, do you, as long as you do not regret the decision that you end up making, or you do not feel that there's a good why or reason why you're making that decision. You don't want to let outside peer pressure or the need for you to look quote unquote successful by having money or getting good looking stuff as a CEO. You do not want to fall into that trap. You want to be able to do you and be yourself. And by the way, I'm not saying you as a CEO, you should not be happy by buying maybe a Gucci belt. Honestly, if that's what you want to do it. That's not what I want to do personally. But then again, that's personally. So you want to be able to do your own type of thing, but just make sure you're happy about that decision. All right. So yeah, that's basically it. It's basically a question that came from the one video. I'll put in the description, or maybe I'll just put the title of the video here, and you can just search it up on my YouTube channel, and you can be able to watch that whole video. It's actually a pretty good video. I'd highly recommend it to anyone out there starting a company, or you are in the midst of kind of establishing your profit splits or your share splits with other founders in your company. All right. So once again, shout out to Lavielle. And shout out to Born to Do Business. It is an amazing group. I actually remember how I met them. It was a very long time ago, and I remember he messaged me on my Facebook, and he asked me to help him how to do his banner design, and I was like, oh, why not? Let me just help him. At that time, I didn't even know who he was. And then like a few weeks later, I'm like, the dude was on television, and the banner I designed him was actually like in the background of the one like video they had at one of their conferences. And I was like, my goodness, that's one thing I really love about helping people without even regardless of always thinking about what you're gonna get back in return. Because from that, I was able to connect to more entrepreneurs on from another part of Africa. I was able to learn a lot from him. And by the way, this dude is well connected, is doing incredible things in Africa, and I believe he's definitely gonna be one of the major key leaders in our generation. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching the video. I want to wish you all the best of luck and all the success out there. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to comment, feel free to DM me on Instagram, and etc. on. Peace to the out.